Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dig into a really surprising truth about how we learn. We've all heard that saying, no pain, no gain, right? But what if starting easy is actually the secret to getting smarter faster? Turns out the answer is probably not what you're expecting. Okay, so let's just dive right in with this question. When you're trying to learn something new, a new skill, is it always better to jump straight into the deep end? To really, really challenge yourself? Is harder always better? Most of us have had this idea basically drilled into us our entire lives. No pain, no gain. If you want to get through at something, you have to struggle. You've got to push through the toughest version of a task to really build that skill. But what if that's only half the story? What if, specifically when you're trying to figure out a new way of doing something, a new strategy, that old advice is actually, well, working against you? That's what we're going to dig into today, and it's based on some really fascinating research. So, how do we even begin to unpack this? Well, the answer lies in a concept that is absolutely critical for learning effectively. It's called metacognition. Or, to put it simply, it's about thinking about how you think. Yeah, metacognition is basically your brain's own manager. It's not just about doing a task. It's about being able to step back and observe how you're doing it. It's that moment you realize, oh, wait a minute, when I group these things together, I remember them way better. That self-awareness, that's the secret sauce. And this quote from researcher Deanna Kuhn just nails it. She says you can be taught a new strategy, you might even use it once, but unless that experience actually changes how you think about your own thinking, that meta level, that new skill, it just won't stick around. So the huge question becomes, how do you trigger that deep meta level change? Well, to figure this out, a group of researchers set up this really clever experiment with some first graders. It seems simple on the surface, but the results were, well, they were profound. So the task was a basic memory game using these picture cards. The whole goal was to see if the kids could discover a really powerful memory strategy all on their own. And that strategy was grouping similar items together, like putting all the toy pictures in one pile and all the food pictures in another. So here's how they set it up. They made two groups. Group A got what they called the easy start. They only had to remember 8 pictures. Pretty light mental task for a kid. But Group B, they got the hard start. They had a much tougher challenge, remembering 16 pictures. Now, for a first grader, that is a heavy, heavy cognitive load. Okay, so what do you think happened? Which group do you think is going to have that breakthrough moment and become the master strategists? Is it the kids who really struggled with the hard task, or the ones who kind of breezed through the easy one? Well, the answer really does go against almost everything we're taught about learning. And honestly, it's not what most people, myself included, would have guessed. Now, first things first, just to make sure everybody was on the same page, the researchers showed both groups how to use the grouping strategy. And yeah, everyone was able to do it successfully. But the real test came next. The kids were given a new, difficult 16-picture task, and this time they had to decide for themselves whether or not to use the strategy. And here it is. This is the aha moment of the entire study. The difference here is just massive. Look at this. 72% of the kids from the Easy Start group chose to use that grouping strategy on the new, harder task. But the Hard Start group, only 16%. They almost completely abandoned the strategy. So why? Why this huge gap? Well, the research paper puts it very clearly. The kids in the Hard Start group were so overwhelmed just trying to remember all 16 pictures that even when they were using the strategy, they weren't really aware of what they were doing or why it was helping. They were just surviving the task, not learning from it. Psychologists have a term for this. It's called cognitive load. And trying to discover a new strategy when your brain is already at max capacity, it's like trying to learn a new dance move in the middle of a loud, packed, chaotic dance club. All your mental energy is just spent trying not to bump into people. There's no brain power left over for observation or insight. But for that Easy Start group, it was a totally different story. The simple task of remembering just 8 pictures left them with plenty of spare mental bandwidth. And that extra capacity is where metacognition happens. It gave them the space to actually observe their own actions and have that crucial aha moment to realize, hey, wait a second, when I put the pictures in groups, this is way easier. So the crucial point here is this. This isn't just a cute story about kids and memory cards. This is a fundamental principle of how we learn new strategies. And we can apply this insight to just about anything in our own lives. So if you want to help someone or yourself, discover a better way of doing something, this is basically the recipe. First, you lower the cognitive load. Start with a simpler version of the problem. Second, you allow that easy version to lead to success, which builds up momentum and confidence. And third, and this part is key, you prompt reflection. You have to ask, how did you do that? Why did it work? That question is what ignites the metacognitive spark. And really, this applies everywhere. Instead of throwing your kid into complex long division, maybe you start with a simpler version using blocks. Or before you try to play a whole new song on the guitar, just master one simple chord progression. When you're learning new software at work, don't try to do everything at once. Just master one key function first. An easy start isn't being lazy. It's actually the fastest path to deep strategic understanding. So the next time you're facing a tough new challenge, the takeaway here is pretty clear. The best first move might not be to just grit your teeth and push harder. It might be to take a step back and ask yourself, what's the easiest possible version of this that I can start with? Because that simple shift, that could be the key to your biggest breakthrough yet.